Привіт! I'm Chuck Olenek, a Ukrainian-American baptized with the name Yaroslav. That's also the name that I use in the historical reenactment group, the Society for Creative Anachronism, where I'm known as Yaroslav the Persistent, or Yari. I've been putting together YouTube videos and putting them up on my channel in order to share the research that I've done on Slavic folklore and mythology and Slavic history and Slavic culture. I was inundated with this stuff. I was brought up in a Ukrainian household, so I can't get away from it. And so if you're a viewer, you're not going to get away from it either. And the reason I'm dressed like a Slavic Johnny Cash today, all in black, looking like I'm going to a funeral, it's October, we're getting closer to Halloween, and it's of course time to talk about the spooky stuff. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about a character in Slavic lore and folk tales, Koshchei the Deathless, who has always been a character to scare the salo and borscht out of me. And I always think of this illustration by Ivan Bilibin whenever I think of him. But then I realized I have to tell you about him in order to tell a story. But then I figured out I needed to talk about the Slavic lands of the dead and the Baltic ones before I could do that. So here it goes. All right, long before Christianity shows up with its promise of eternal life, the Slavic people had taken for granted the soul's endurance in another life beyond this one. Death, that's a doorway to that world. It's not an end, it's the beginning of the journey. It didn't matter what the worms did to your body, with what remained, the soul's elsewhere. All the scriptural traditions of orthodoxy, all that did is basically said, yeah, the soul lives on. It's sort of like peers talking in council and repeating the thing that was said just before them, but putting it in their words. All right, whether you're burned in a boat because you were important, or you were placed in a coffin, you were gonna go someplace. But there's a lot of different ideas as to where you're gonna go. The first trick was to get out of the grave. With this in mind, peasants often buried their dead with wooden ladders or knotted leather ropes to assist in the climb. Tradition later had the corpses interred with little ladders shaped in dough and baked into bread. Then it was time to begin the journey. It might be the crossing of a sea. The Slavs were a little too landlocked for oceans, all right, so seas are going to do it. So the kovsh, the drinking vessel, shaped like a boat, might have had a connection with that. Anyway, there's another version of going to the afterlife. It might involve tramping to the next life along a dusty and grueling road, which is why the dead were often buried with boots. The Czechs were still doing it in the 19th century. It might involve climbing a steep-sided mountain with sheer faces that may be made of polished iron, could be made of glass. And so nail clippings from the deceased were entombed with the corpse because it was thought the dead would need sharp talons in order to make the climb. The neighboring Lithuanians would burn the bodies of wild beasts with the human dead in the hopes that the souls of the deceased would be able to take advantage of the animal's claws to help make the climb. That could also explain why Russian peasants well into the modern era wore rings and amulets containing owl's claws and their own nail parings. So I'm going to go with, if they were doing that recently, it could have been happening within the period that the society covers. Okay. Other Slavs, they're looking to the sky. Maybe the sign was a path through the rugged storm clouds, within which were malevolent storm spirits, or in some versions, huge black dogs who guarded the road, preventing all but the most intrepid from entering. Then there's that multicolored sweep of a rainbow across the sky, which could have been a path to the afterlife. Others are looking at the sky and they're seeing the stars as mortal souls. And it was said that if a new one appeared, a baby was born. And if you saw a meteor falling, which would probably be much more common and much more likely, a man or a woman had died. Okay, if you want more of a celestial connection, you take a look at the Milky Way. The Slavs called it the Bird's Way, and they called it the River of Souls. And they viewed that as a celestial bridge that the departed loved ones were going to cross. If you go into the Tula province in Russia, the folklore said that there were 4 mighty beings. They were armed with scythes, and they mowed down those attempting to get into paradise. So entry into paradise wasn't necessarily guaranteed, which means you've got to wonder where those particular souls are going to go, and I think we're going to get to that a little later. Often the destination was Rai, spelled R-A-I in English letters. The place beyond the flowing water, the place where the birds flew during the winter. Slavs also imagined heaven or paradise as a beautiful garden filled with apple trees. The apples were golden, giving eternal youth, health, and beauty. Or it could be a place beyond the sea or the country of the rising sun. Many-headed serpents guard access to the country of eternal summer, the source of living water. And this is where all heroes must go. Because that's what heroes do. I just wanted to say that. Now, pre-Christian Slavs believed that their righteous ancestors lived in the sky, or in this paradise of Rai. The keys to this heavenly realm, birds are keeping them. They locked up heaven when they left for the winter. When they came back in the spring, they opened the doors, and the sources of living water come flowing down as rain, and the rain then brings the earth back to life with the coming of spring. No living man can cross into the world of the dead. Only mythical heroes can overcome the border. Later, the heroes of fairy tales also had the chance, though not all of them made it. One version of the Slavic land of the dead shares some features with Hades that's out of Greek mythology. It has nothing to do with Christian hell. It's found in the earth, and it's not the place of evil spirits. You know, evil spirits are found like a lot deeper, evidently. And over the centuries, the destination of the dead, whether it's called Rai or Peklo, that got influenced by Christian custom. So Rai becomes more associated with Orthodox views of heaven, and Peklo starts to take on many of the characteristics of hell as a place of terror and torment for the damned. So you got to be good. Okay, this sets us up so that I can talk about Koshchei the Deathless, or Deathless Koshchei, or Koshchei the Immortal, and then we can get into a story about him. So until the next time, do побачення.